I just completed the first half. Well, how do you know if it's the first half? I just completed the northern half of the John Muir Trail in 8 days. 8 days. I actually had anticipated and originally planned to do the entire trail from Happy Isles down to Mount Whitney and doing it in what would be called like the golden ticket, the southbound fashion, the original way. I mean, I got the golden ticket and I decided after 8 days of hiking, 9 days away from home, that I was actually going to end my hike and come back early. Now, I want to make a video about that in a separate one. But what I would like to do in this video is make this more of a conversation between you and I. Feel free to go ahead and put up your feet, kind of cross your hands. Let's pretend that you and I are hanging out in my living room and having a conversation about how the REI Flash Air 50-liter pack did on this trip. Earlier this year, I picked up this pack. I did a kind of comprehensive review on it. At the end of the video, I'll make sure I put a link to that so that you can watch that after you finish this video. But I actually had one guy say like, hey, do you have any miles with the pack? What did you learn? And that got me thinking that after this John Muir Trail hike, I wanted to do an update for you and I wanted to let you know how this pack did. So what I would like to do is I'd like to first off start and tell you where I hiked, how many miles, because I want you to get a sense of the miles I have on this pack. And then I want to move from there and I want to let you know the positives of this pack. Finally, I want to conclude with 3 things that I think could be an improvement. And then I'm going to try to remember to do a bonus tip for you here at the end. As I shared with you, I used this pack, the REI Flash Air 50, on my through hike of the John Muir Trail. The John Muir Trail is 210 miles. The purists would say you start in Yosemite, you end at Mount Whitney, and I made it to the halfway point, which is Muir Trail Ranch. I want to let you know how many miles I did each day with this pack so that you can judge that on my experience and how you would use this pack. I started in Happy Isles and I went to High Sierra Sunrise Camp, and that day I did 17.5 miles. From High Sierra Sunrise Camp the next day, I went into Lyell Canyon, and my app told me that I did 18.5 miles on that day. Moving from Lyell Canyon, I went over to Ruby Lake, which I had at 15.5 miles. From Ruby Lake to Reds Meadow, I had at 18.8 miles. From Reds Meadow to Virginia Lake, I had 17 miles. I had intended to go to Duck Lake, but I decided to push forward and do a couple more miles that day. I went from Virginia Lake down to Vermilion Valley Ranch, which I had at 16.2 miles. I took a 0 day at Vermilion Ranch because my plan was to finish the John Muir Trail. I hiked one more day from Vermilion Valley Ranch to Sanger Creek, which I had at, I think, 19.5 miles. And then I woke up in the morning and went from Sanger Creek to Muir Trail Ranch and ended up adding 5 miles to go to Florence Lake, where I was grateful to catch a ferry home. I had this pack with me the entire time. And what I want to do in the rest of this video is I want to tell you all of the positives that I had from this pack. When I was wearing this pack the entire time, I had no back pain. This pack is rated for 25 pounds for you to carry. When I started out with all of my gear and my bear can, I was at 30 pounds without water. It wasn't bad. I mean, carrying that pack, I felt like it was fine. I know I did have some shoulder pain, and I anticipated that shoulder pain is because I hadn't done any backpacking this year. As I continued to eat my food over several days, that shoulder pain dissipated. That could be a part because I try to bring 2 pounds of food a day. I want to consume 3,500 calories to try to lose as little weight as possible on this trip. I was super impressed with this pack and how it sat on my back. When I was hiking, I felt like it sat really well. This pack has a great system here for ventilation and for padding on your back. It sat extremely comfortably for me as I was wearing it. This pack also has something that I talked about in my original video. It has this little baggie here that I didn't really know what I would do with this. I considered leaving it, and then at the end I decided I would keep it. And I actually used it for a variety of things. I started out by putting bug spray in here, and I also put my med kit in here. I thought they would be easily accessible. As I continued through the trip, there were some days that I actually put clothes in here to dry. And there were other days that I would cold soak my lunch and I would put it in here so that it could just warm up in the sun and heat up there. So I thought that that was really versatile. The back of this pack also has kind of this big stuff pouch that you can throw things in, and I loved this. I had my camp shoes in there. I have these little like aqua socks, water shoes that I would put in there. I kept my John Muir Trail map in here so that it was easily accessible. I also have this little REI towel that clips on here, and there were some days that I had to like hang that over here to dry. I would also dry clothes out of here, but this also, I could put food in there. I just felt like the versatility on this was super good. There were days that I put my fishing rod in here, and when I wasn't carrying my trekking poles on the pack, because this pack will carry your trekking poles here, I would just use this little cinch cord to go around my rod, and I was able to stick my rod right here in the pack. I really liked the side pockets on here. I dedicated one of these side pockets to like water and water filtration and to my poop kit. So I had my Ketadine in here. I also have this really cool hydro pack stash that folds down. And so when I would use LMNT for hydration, I would put that in there. And then I was also able to put my poop kit in here. And you have these great little cinch cords on the side of the pack that you can use to stuff in those side pockets. I found this pack to be super durable and to really fit the needs that I had for this trip here. I'm actually really impressed for a 50-liter pack how much it was able to hold in there. I wish I could have had all my gear out here right now, but I've already cleaned it and put it away in the garage. But I do want to tell you, if you were holding the pack, I would put my sleeping bag, my quilt on the bottom, and then I would put my Nemo tensor pad on top of that, and then I would put my tent on that. I put all of those in a plastic bag because it did rain one day, and I cannot tell you how impressed I am with this pack. I know they don't claim it to be waterproof. I'm not going to say that it's waterproof, but this thing was super water resistant. I'm looking for this pad. This is an Outdoor Vitals 1/8-inch foam pad that I kept on top of the pack. And during that rainstorm on the first day, I was so impressed. I opened up the pack and I was like, oh my gosh, I thought everything was going to be drenched, and it wasn't. From there, I would put my clothes, and then I kind of was messing around with how I was going to put the bear can in. And I was carrying the BV 500 for this trip. And you could put the Bear Vault in vertical or horizontal. And so I actually carried it both ways. I didn't see much of a difference. What I ended up doing was doing, quilt, sleeping pad, tent, pillow, and then I put my cook pot. I did bring this Jetboil stash in there. And then I'd kind of build my clothes around that. And then I would set the Bear Vault in horizontally. Other times I just put clothes, I did my big three or my sleep system, and then I put the Bear Vault in horizontally. No, that's vertical. Yeah, I put it in vertically and was able to build my clothes around it. And in all situations of packing the bag that way, either way, I had no issues. So this Bear Vault will fit in vertically and horizontally inside your pack. This pack also has some great hip belt pockets. One of the pockets I used for just like a quick kit if I needed anything. I had sunscreen in it. And then I also found that I was able to put a couple snacks in here. As the trip went on, I used one of these other side pockets for snacks. If I wasn't putting my Jetboil in here, which it does fit, and I want to talk about that in a minute. But if I wasn't putting my Jetboil in here, I was putting snacks. If my Jetboil was in the main part and I was doing the bare vault horizontally, and then I was putting it in there. And so there were several times I set the bare vault in horizontally, and I thought, REI, great job. You guys nailed this because that bare vault fits in there perfectly. Now I want to move on to 3 changes that I would make. These are super minor and these are super picky, so stick with me. The first is, oh, you know what? Yeah, let me say this too. This phone pocket, before I get there, this phone pocket, I actually used it to carry my permit. And I only was checked permit once, but it was so nice to have it here. So great job, REI. Okay, now let me get to my 3 minor changes that I would make. The first minor change is I was hanging my Garmin from one of these, probably right down here, straps. And I noticed, just because of the way that this webbing is sewn horizontally, that my Garmin would swing and it was hitting me in the chest. And this was awkward to say, it was hitting me in my nipple, and it just got sore. And so I kind of wished that there was a strap here vertically, and so maybe that would reduce some of the swing. I told you these things are going to be minor, okay? The second minor change that I would make is I used these water bottle pockets down here, and there is a very small drawstring on them. I'll get you a better picture. But what I noticed is throughout the day, I wanted these to be a little tighter. I wish that maybe there was just a little more gumption in those. And so that is the second minor change that I would make on this pack. The third minor change that I would make on this pack is something I alluded to, is that my Jetboil just had a hard time fitting into those side pockets when the pack was fully loaded. And I made a last minute decision to bring my Jetboil, and I'm a touch hesitant because I actually wish that I would have brought this fire maple petrol stove, just because if you look at the radius, if you look at the radius on these 2 stoves, the fire maple is just thinner. They both have a heat exchanger. I paired this with the Green Peak stove from Fire Maple, which has a piezo on it. So this doesn't have a piezo. I had to make sure to get my lighter. And last minute I went with this because it was like an ounce or 2 lighter than the Fire Maple setup, but I wish I would have brought this. So there's my thoughts after hiking over 130 miles with this pack, carrying this pack for several days, long haul days, where I carried water, food, everything that I needed, elevation gain. I mean, if you just want to talk, my first day, I had 6,000 feet elevation gain over 17.5 miles. And like I said at the beginning of this video, if you want to see kind of the first overview that I did of this pack, I'll put a video over here so that you can see that. And if you're interested in this Fire Maple stove, which I think this is a killer, budget-friendly, lightweight, ultralight backpacker's dream stove, Fire Maple has something going for them. I'll put a video over here because I did a comparison where I tested this with my Jetboil Flash. And this is the stove that I'm going to be bringing next month when I go hike out of Rock Creek, over Mono Pass, back into the Inyo National Forest. So if you have any questions about this pack, go ahead and drop a comment. Make sure you do all that like, subscribe, and that other fun stuff. And as always, I hope that this was helpful for you.